Good afternoon, Bucknutters. Welcome into What We Learned live following Ohio State's 54-10 demolition of Iowa. Started slow, the Buckeyes did, but then they just absolutely crushed Iowa. 54-10. I mean, it was looking shaky early, to say the least. That Tommy Eichenberg pick six to end the first half, that was curtains. And then you're wondering, well, are the Buckeyes just going to kind of coast and it look bad in the second half, and then they get all the style points you could ever hope for in the second half? Like if the first half would have started like that and then they kind of coasted in the second half, no one would have thought anything of it. But they didn't look good in the first half, and we're going to talk about what we learned. Welcome, everybody, to the show. First and foremost, I'll take questions later. I'm going to get into what we learned. From my perspective, I got a lot of notes written down. Just to give you guys a heads up, we're going to hear from Bill Kurlick on the day that the big day that it was for recruiting. Not as huge, as it will be for the Michigan game, of course, but still a big day for recruiting today. Carnell Tate, the Ohio State wide receiver commit, the five-star wide receiver, who is a verbal commitment, took his official visit today, this weekend overall. So that'll be great. Let me retweet the show here real quick. Then I'm going to get into some of the things that we learned from this game today. Okay, we have to start with Zach Harrison. Much maligned Zach Harrison. Fans wondering, like, when is he ever going to step up? Well, man, he looks like a stud, doesn't he? He's even, we'll get into everything. I loved even late. He was like telling the fans to get up in South stands, like, get up, come on. Love seeing that out of Zach Harrison. I love even more than him getting the fans up. How about everything that he did defensively? He was just wrecking shop out there. Sack fumble, tackle for loss on third down, caused an interception, by getting pressure on a third down, batted a pass down on a third down. And it's like every time he was making a big play, it was like, wow, that was a big play. Like, and it was on third down, and it caused a turnover or both. So Zach Harrison, that's who gets the game ball. And that's saying a lot because there's a lot of game balls that could go around today. So that's the first thing. Zach Harrison, kudos to him. What a hell of a game for Zach Harrison. Happy for that young man. As I've said all offseason and even into the early season, like, it reminds me a little bit of Steve Miller in 2014, but I expected more out of Zach this year than even Steve did in 2014 because remember the pick six against Alabama, but Steve had a solid year even before that. I thought it would be like kind of similar with Zach Harrison, where everybody's like, come on, what's wrong with this former five-star? And Zach was ranked higher than Steve. They were both ranked very high, but Zach was the number one D end in the country coming out of high school. Steve was ranked very high, but not quite that high. But I thought I just had a good feeling Zach Harrison's going to be like a better version of what Steve Miller was as a senior in 2014. And frankly, my friends, Zach Harrison's playing even better than I expected. Kudos to Zach Harrison. He's first and foremost. Okay, so there's going to be good and bad here on the show because I'm going in chronological order here, basically, although Zach Harrison was just all over. He's not really chronological order. He's just absolutely dominant fashion. Okay, 4 times in the first half. This is what everybody's going to be upset about, and rightfully so. 4 times in the first half, Ohio State had to settle for field goals when they got short fields. Like with 2 of the times at least, it was one like 3 and out and a field goal. I think then they got like a first down once, maybe the other time they got a first down, maybe 2 first downs. So like 4 times in the first half, 3 turnovers, and that terrible decision by Iowa's punter. It wasn't a called fake punt. He thought he had room, and Caden Curry was like, no, you don't. Denzel Burke was there too. I thought Denzel Burke played pretty well today. We'll get into that. But so 3 turnovers in Ohio State territory, and then a, fake punt. I mean, it technically was a fake punt because the punter, acted like he was going to punt and didn't, and got stuffed by Caden Curry. So 4 times you got to settle for field goals on short fields. You can't do that. Can't do that. That's not good. All right. One of the other things we learned a lot of stuff. Iowa's defense is legitimately great. Like, we got to give them props. Like, their offense is atrocious. Iowa's defense came in here ranked number 7th in the country in total defense. Ohio State came in ranked 5th. That'll go up for Ohio State because Ohio State held them to like 120 yards or something crazy. Iowa will actually take a hit because they were like averaging, only allowing opponents like 250 yards a game or something like that. And the Buckeyes put up over 300. But you have to give Iowa's defense credit. I mean, this is a really, really good defense. We learned that they're a legit defense, and they gave Ohio State problems. And this, to me, was like a mini primer for November 26th. Michigan is much better than Iowa, but Iowa gave Michigan more problems than they did Ohio State. The game was in Iowa City. I get that. And Iowa gave Ohio State problems early, but what did Ohio State do? They just wore them out and then just blew them out. 54-10 does all this talking in the world. And Ohio State can throw the ball downfield and Michigan cannot. Now, maybe J.J. McCarthy will be able to prove he can throw the ball downfield, but right now he hasn't shown he can do that. Everything for Michigan's offense is their strong running game, legit, great offensive line, legit, dink and dunk passing game, but no downfield passing game, or very little. So I'm confident about November 26th. But you got to give Iowa's defense credit. That's a great defense. They've got to be – man, if you're on Iowa's defense, you got to be like, are you kidding me? Like, we have the 131st ranked offense in the country. There's 131 teams in the country, and Iowa's offense is ranked 131st. And, like, after today's performance, getting held to, like, even, like, over 100 yards less than what they average, there's no way to go. Like, they can't go down. They're already the worst offense in the country. If you're on Iowa's defense, you got to be like, what the hell? All right, we got to get into this. Looks to me like Jackson Smith-Njigba is done. You know, I guess you had to bring him back at some point. He's medically cleared. I get it, but we've been talking about it. Anybody who's been watching the Bucknuts Morning Five, listening to the Bucknuts Morning Five, we've been talking about it ad nauseum. Like, why rush him back for any of these games that you can win without him? And maybe it was inevitable. They could have held him out till Michigan, and he could have, re-injured it. I get it, but, like, I'll be surprised if, 8:30? I wrote down the exact – because I wrote down an expletive that I won't share with you guys, but I wrote down 8:36 of the second quarter. Might be the last time we ever see Jackson Smith-Njigba have a play for Ohio State, have a snap for Ohio State. So it's a shame. It's a shame. So, I hope I'm wrong, but I won't be surprised if Jackson Smith-Njigba is done now. I won't be surprised if he is. I hope I'm wrong. So that's bad news. The unbelievably good news is, despite losing 2 first-round picks at wide receiver, losing who everybody expected would be the number 1 wide receiver off the board this coming year, and maybe he still will be. I hope he is. This shouldn't really affect his long-term capabilities. If you're an NFL team, it'd be silly to think like that. So basically, you lose 3 first-round picks. Let's assume JSN's out, and man, you're not really skipping a beat. I mean, Emeka Egbuka and Marvin Harrison Jr. Are both Biletnikoff contenders. Julian Fleming's the number 3 wide receiver. He'd be the number 4 if JSN was healthy. As long as those guys can stay healthy, I think Ohio State's going to be fine there even without JSN, as much of a blow as that is. The problem would be then if, like, one of those guys gets healthy, or God forbid 2 of them get injured. So not good news about JSN, but good news right now. Speaking of Bill Kurelic and recruiting, let's get Bill Kurelic in here. Later, we will hear from Patrick Murphy and Steve Hellwagon live from the Horseshoe after interviews, but let's get the dean of Ohio State football recruiting in here, Bill Kurelic, to give the latest on recruiting. Bill, before we get to recruiting, your thoughts on the game itself. I know you're a big Buckeye football observer. You're not just the dean of Ohio State football recruiting. Slow start for the Buckeyes. Offense was struggling against a great Iowa defense, but then the Buckeyes turned it on. Just your thoughts overall on this game today, Bill.
First of all, I'm glad you said it. You didn't say an old Ohio State football observer, but that I am too, an old observer. But yeah, I thought it was an interesting game, to say the least. I mean, at one point, Ohio State was approaching 50 points, and they had less than 200 yards of offense, I believe. Kind of crazy, but a slow start, yeah, but it certainly wasn't a slow start for the defense. And I continue to marvel over what Jim Knowles has done with that Ohio State defense in less than a year. I mean, that was – I guess it shows you what a difference a great defensive coordinator can make. And the whole coaching staff really should get credit as well. Ryan Day, he hit the jackpot. He hit a home run with Jim Knowles, no doubt.
No doubt about it. Absolutely love everything about him. All right, let's get into recruiting. All right, Carnell Tate on his official visit. What are you hearing? He's obviously committed to Ohio State, the 5-star wide receiver. Are you confident he's going to sign with the Buckeyes in December?
Yeah, I am. He's a South Florida kid, although he's actually a Midwest kid. He's from the Midwest, but he is at Bradenton IMG. I guess that's not exactly South Florida, but it's close enough. But I think, there's been so much talk about him, Tennessee, and so on and so forth. And when you get great players like Ohio State gets to commit and recruits, those players are going to get recruited by other schools. And Ohio State recruits players from other schools that are committed. So it's not surprising that Tennessee and other schools continue to recruit Ohio State commitments. But I just feel like in the end, Carnell Tate will sign with Ohio State, and I've felt that way all along. Will Ohio State have to continue to recruit him all the way through the process? They certainly will, but they'll do that. And he's not the only Floridian making an official visit to Ohio State this weekend. Cedric Hawkins, safety from Florida, making his official visit as well. And there's been a little talk that other schools are recruiting him. But again, I like the chances that both of them end up signing with Ohio State. And, if you're sitting in that stadium today and you're Carnell Tate and you're seeing the game Marvin Harrison had, for instance, and Ibuka for that matter, how could you not want to be part of that? I mean, it's tremendous. And Cedric Hawkins, you're a safety, and you see Ohio State playing 3 safeties out there. Again, why wouldn't you want to be a part of that in the great defense Ohio State has now?
Yeah, Bill, I mean, what Ohio State's doing right now at the wide receiver position. And then furthermore, I mean, how could it not help recruiting that they just put 2 first-round wide receivers in the draft last year, and all the other guys in the NFL right now at the wide receiver position from Ohio State, Terry McLaurin, Michael Thomas, even Noah Brown's having a big year. People are like, how's Noah Brown going to go pro after a third-year sophomore season? It's like how you like me now. Go on and on. I'm sure I'm leaving guys out, but
Olave and Garrett Wilson.
Well, I mean, I said that they had 2 first-round.
Yeah. It's and not only were they first round, they're doing it on the field this year.
Yes, sir, they are. Yes, sir, they are. No doubt about it. All right, let's get into some of the other guys. And most of the other guys, the big names are 2024 guys. Do I have that right? That we're here today?
Yeah, generally speaking, yeah. They've got Quentin Martin.
Yep. Go ahead.
Garrett Stover. Yep, Garrett Stover. Cade's cousin. Making the visit. And, I have crystal balled Garrett Stover quite some time back to Ohio State. I feel very good about that pick. I think I think he's going to be a Buckeye eventually. And I know Garrett Stover's impressed with that Ohio State defense. I went to his game a couple weekends ago and talked to him, did an interview with him afterwards. I had on Bucknuts a video interview, and he's definitely impressed with Ohio State's defense. So, again, he saw a defense today that created 6 turnovers, I believe. I think that's right, isn't it? 6 turnovers, and I believe they had, 6 sacks, maybe 5 or 6 sacks. So that looks like a fun defense to play in, and I think Garrett Stover feels that way. I like Ohio State's chances there. Quentin Martin, he's a running back athlete out of Pennsylvania, 2024 kid. As you mentioned, these are mostly 2024 guys visiting Ohio State today. An outstanding safety from New Jersey, Vebu Toure, is at Ohio State today. Micah Hudson, wide receiver, that is one of the top. He's a 5-star wide receiver from Texas. He's another 2024 kid making his visit. Reiner Swanson is an interesting guy out of Laguna Beach, California. Kevin Wilson is recruiting him. He's a tight end, 2024 tight end that visiting today. So, those are most of the big name 2024 guys visiting Ohio State today. And I think I saw something about Cade and Garrett Stover brothers question. Maybe you can help me with that, Dave, but they are not brothers. They are cousins.
They're cousins. Yeah. I mean, because not that they would have to go to the same high school, but Cade went to Lexington, right? And his cousin is at Big Walnut. So yeah, I believe they are cousins. All right, you touched on this a little bit. For those who missed it, how's Tate liking his visit from everything you're hearing so far?
Well, to be honest, I try not to bother kids while they're on their official visits. I've 35 years of doing this. I've never really felt like you should bother a kid on his official visit, and it's worked out pretty well for me so far. So I guess I'm going to continue to do that, not bother them during their official visits. That's their time. They get that. They're going to make one official visit to Ohio State ever in their life. So I usually give them a little space to do that. And his visit, he has basically he's not really even halfway through that visit yet, but just seeing some things from how he interacting on the side and everything. I'm confident everything is going just fine, and I'm very confident Brian Hartline is going to do a great job of, I don't know if I'd say selling because he's already committed to Ohio State, but driving home Ohio State is the place for him to be this weekend.
High school football question for you, Dean. This is coming from Neil Harris on YouTube. He says, Dean, is the OSHA playoffs watered down with 16 teams, meaning instead of like 8 teams in each region making it, basically everybody in the region makes it? There's some regions with 18 teams and 16 of them make it. Are the high school playoffs in Ohio watered down with 16 teams in each region making it?
Yeah, I can see that question and maybe the point that it is watered down. As you mentioned, there may only be 17 or 18 teams in a region in some of these regions, but still, kids want to play football. And if you're a senior and you get to the playoffs, that's something you're going to probably remember for the rest of your life. And if you happen to win a few games, that's even better. So I'm okay with 16 teams making it. We all love football, so why not football? Having had a son that played high school basketball and all that, I was so sad to see his career end. And I kind of feel the same way, parents of football players, let them play, I guess.
All right, let's get you in on this. We actually have a question for you, Dean, about a kicker. He said, this is David on YouTube. He says, I know Nolan Hauser is a place kicker, but are we in on him? Class of 24, same high school as Evan Pryor. What do you think, Dean?
I think, David, you've been doing your research a little bit. That's not a name everybody knows about, but you know that name. So good job, David. And it is somebody that Ohio State is interested in. He has been to an Ohio State game earlier this season. He is interested in Ohio State. So there is certainly mutual interest there. When I last talked to him, he told me that he's certainly considering Ohio State. He has scholarship offers from a couple other schools. He doesn't have one from Ohio State yet. But a year ago at this time, I was talking about Jaden Fielding, how he would likely become a Buckeye as a preferred walk-on and be the guy kicking off for Ohio State, maybe doing long field goals, and then going on scholarship his second year and taking over after Noah Ruggles was gone. And that's kind of exactly the way that's headed. He's done what he's supposed to do this year. I think he'll go on scholarship next year. And if Hauser becomes a Buckeye, that could be the path he takes too, as a preferred walk-on initially, and then perhaps as a scholarship guy if he were to become a Buckeye. And there's always a chance they could offer him too as well.
Another question for the Dean here. We'll get you out of here shortly. Let's get this one. This is a broad question. I'm sure one everybody wants to know about. Bill, this is from Tom on YouTube. Bill, what recruits are up next for a official visit, or I guess visits in general for a home game? Probably the Michigan game. Indiana's not going to be that big. So how big is the Michigan game going to be, and who's going to be here for the Indiana game?
Yeah, you're killing me, Tom. I'm just starting to work on. I'm going to be spending the rest of the afternoon and evening and tomorrow talking to all the guys visiting this weekend. But that's okay. We'll go ahead and jump ahead. For the Indiana game, the big name is Ryan Carter. He's a linebacker out of Tennessee, Smyrna, Tennessee. He's a 2023 guy. Ohio State would still like to add a linebacker to their 2023, the current class, and he's a good one. I think his decision is going to come down to Alabama, Tennessee, or Ohio State. He's a kid from Tennessee, so that certainly would give the Vols a lot of hope there, plus the way they're playing. But getting that, Ohio State's recruited well in Tennessee lately, but getting him away from Alabama and Tennessee is not going to be easy for Ohio State. But he's a kid that will make an official visit when Ohio State plays Indiana. And I'll mention one other name for that game, Indiana. Jake Wheelock is a kid I like. He's a 2024 offensive lineman from Ohio, and he doesn't have a scholarship offer yet from the Buckeyes, but I think he can get one in the not-too-distant future, and I would keep the name Jake Wheelock in mind. As far as the Michigan game, I think Dave and Tom mentioned looking ahead to that one. That's going to be kind of another who's list of guys left. The big name right now, official visit wise for that game, is Jordan Hall, a defensive lineman out of Jacksonville, Florida. Right now, I think Georgia leads for him, but he's scheduled to make an official visit to Ohio State that weekend. And of course, a lot of the commitments will be there, but there's a lot of great 2024 guys visiting for the Michigan game. I'll name a few. Bryce West out of Cleveland Glenville, a cornerback, tremendous player. Colin Hurley, a 2025 quarterback, and Ryan Montgomery, Luke's younger brother, a 2025 quarterback. They're going to be at that game. Jordan Marshall, 2024 running back from Cincinnati Moeller, will be at that game. Aaron Scott from your neck of the woods, Dave. He's from the Dayton area. He's from, I guess, Dayton, southwest Ohio. He's from Springfield, actually. Will be at that game. So there's going to be a lot of great 2024 players and 2025 players at that game.
You got time for one more before I get you out of here?
Sure.
All right, last one. It's from Michael on YouTube. Dean, what would be your dream linebacker room for us in the next cycle?
Ooh, that's a good one. For the 2024 guys, and I'll probably forget somebody here, but Sammy Brown out of Georgia, great player that likes Ohio State. He's been to Ohio State. He's going to get back to Ohio State. Kingston Villa Amu from California is another great player that they're certainly making a strong push for. I think Ohio State is one of his top choices. So those two guys right off the top of my head would have to be in there. And trying to think who else I would consider up there with those two. Well, Garrett Stover, certainly it would be another one. He's being recruited as a linebacker safety, and I like him a little more as a linebacker, actually, but he's a 2024 guy that they absolutely want. So that would be a third one that I would put in there. And well, I'm glad I didn't leave out Garrett Stover in that one. So those three guys absolutely would be in there.
Well, thank you very much for your insights, sir. I appreciate it very much. We'll get you out of here on that. Thank you to the Dean, Bill Kurlick. I'll let you get back to watching football and probably doing a lot of work too, probably multitasking. But thank you very much for jumping in here, Bill. I appreciate it, my friend.
Appreciate it, Dave. And always enjoyable to join your show, which I know you do a great job at.
Oh, I appreciate that. He is the Dean of Ohio State football recruiting. Thank you again, Bill. Appreciate it, friend.
All right. Take care.
All right. The Dean. Love it. And we'll hear from Patrick Murphy and Steve Hellwagon live from the Horseshoe after interviews are over. Probably a half hour away from that happening, at least, I would guess. All right. Now I'm going to get to more things that we learned. Then we'll get to your questions. If you have questions, let's kind of hold off right now, and then I'll get to them because there'll be so many that I won't be able to see the latest questions. So I'll just start once I ask for questions. Then I'll get to questions. So some of the other things we learned, we started with, before we had the Dean on, I started with, it looks to me like Jackson Smith-Njigba's done. I hope I'm wrong. It just looks like, if I had to guess, it looks like Jackson Smith-Njigba's done. So I hope I'm wrong, but it just felt like if he comes back and re-injures that hamstring, he's probably going to shut it down and get ready for the NFL. I give him credit for coming back. He was giddy to come back. And again, let's all hope I'm wrong. I would love to eat crow on this. And I mean, if he is able to come back, sit him down till Michigan at least. But not looking good there. So we learned that we could have seen the last play of Jackson Smith-Njigba. That's where I left off before we had the Dean in. You got Ohio State's defense. I mean, for all the talk about Iowa's defense, now Ohio State's defense was facing Iowa's offense, so that helps. Iowa's defense was facing an elite offense, so I get it. I gave Iowa's defense props. It was one of the first things I wrote down for what we learned. We learned Iowa's defense is legit, and you have to give them credit. But Ohio State was able to wear them down and eventually get some big plays in the passing game late. And I loved Ryan Day laying it on. Don't forget, in 2017, I put something on Twitter about this. Ryan Day has a long memory. Don't forget, in 2017, that was Ryan Day's first year as an assistant at Ohio State, his first year at Ohio State, period. And Iowa did a fake punt, up relatively big in the second half. Not up that big, but kind of ran it up in their own right, And Ryan Day has a long memory. I guarantee you that had a lot to do with Ohio State throwing the ball like they were in the fourth quarter. And, getting CJ the Heisman votes that he needs. Equal parts probably, but Ryan Day has a long memory. But Iowa, 0 first downs in the first quarter. Jim Knowles is just as a home run hire. Absolutely love it. Cam Brown sitting out today, but we learned Jordan Hancock made his debut, and he was able to play through the whole game. So that was great. They've been nursing him back. He's been practicing at full speed for like 3 weeks now. Made his debut, was able to make it through the game. Good seeing number 7 out there. That's huge. I did think Denzel Burke played well today. J.K. Johnson got the start, hot and cold. Didn't see as much as Jair Brown as I thought we would. We saw him late. Just great. Not for just this game, obviously. It didn't matter this game. And getting Jordan Hancock back is huge. And seeing Denzel Burke starting to look like Denzel Burke is huge too. So that's great. I think overall the kickoff coverage is something we learn is really, really on point. I love the kickoff coverage for the Buckeyes. It's looking really good out there. Not always. There was one they got past the 30 once, but overall, they're like going in there and they're just crushing guys like inside the 20. It's not even inside the 25. They're getting guys like at the 15. And it's not just one guy. It's almost like if one guy doesn't get him, there's another guy waiting right there, or 2 guys get him at the same time. So, and the whole special teams was on point today. Jesse Mirko's a weapon. Love it. Tommy Eichenberg better win the Butkus Award. Not that I've seen every linebacker in college football this year, but I'll be surprised if he doesn't win the line. If he doesn't win the, I shouldn't just say I'll be surprised. He looks like a serious candidate to win the Butkus. I mean, once again, Tommy Eichenberg, Zach Harrison, as I said to begin the show, in case you guys missed it, was the defensive star today. I mean, my gosh, Zach Harrison, the game of his life was just unbelievable. Even things that didn't show up in the stat sheet, probably like when he would hit the quarterback as he's throwing, and that leads to an interception or leads to them getting off the field on third down. Zach Harrison was tremendous, but Tommy Eichenberg, the pick 6, which really sealed the game there at the end of the first half. Ohio State goes up 26-10 there. You're like, as bad as the offense is looking, up 26-10, there's no way Iowa's going to score 27 points in this game. I'm surprised they scored 10, but the only reason they did is because they got that sack fumble on CJ on the first play of the game. And cashed it in. Was that the first play of the game or one of the first plays of the game? So actually that wasn't the first play of the game because Ohio State had the field that Ohio State went 3 and out and kicked the field goal to go up 3-0. Then, so Ohio State took first real drive, I guess. That was not second drive. It's still their second drive. But Tommy Eichenberg just playing so good. Also had a tackle for loss, several tackles. Maybe had one bad play the whole game. I saw him miss one tackle. I don't even think it goes down the books as a missed tackle. That's how great he's playing. He's just all over the field. He's the quarterback of the defense. Tommy Eichenberg is playing if he doesn't win the Butkus, he better be a finalist. That's how great he's playing. Tanner McAllister, we learned, was an underrated transfer. I think if you're a diehard Buckeye fan, you were excited about it. You knew that was a good pickup, but you didn't hear much buzz about you heard a lot of stuff about Ohio State didn't really tap into the portal much this offseason. Well, they didn't get 7 guys, but man, you get a really good starter like that was an all Big 12 player last year that knows Jim Knowles' defense in and out, follows Jim Knowles from Oklahoma State to Ohio State. 2 interceptions today, now 3 on the season, and he just is always in the right spot. Even though he doesn't play the same position as Jordan Fuller, it reminds me a little bit of that. You better believe Tanner McAllister is going to know what he's doing, where he's supposed to be, and he's going to be in the right spot. You don't have to worry about him freelancing. You don't have to worry about him missing tackles. You don't have to worry about does he not know that, the signal? He's the one giving the signals. And I just think, we learned that Tanner McAllister was an underrated transfer. All right. Again, we're going to go good and bad, right? Because even though it finished looking really, really good. I mean, that score 54. If I told you 54-10 against Iowa, you'd be like, okay, hell yeah. And hopefully you still are. A lot of times, though, if it starts slow and then ends fast, people only focus on the bad. But I think we have to recognize that was overall a really good win for Ohio State. But there were bad things. I thought the offensive line did not get nearly enough push at times. Now, there were times they were outmanned. It wasn't just on the offensive line. Sometimes it's easy to see the running back gets stuffed, and you're like, oh, the offensive line, what are they doing? There's a guy got in there. Well, if they're bringing – a lot of times that's on play calling, though. Now, sometimes it was on the offensive line. Again, this is why I like to do the written what we learned after I rewatch the game. Now, as I'm watching the game, I'm rewinding and, I'm focusing on the game. So I'm like rewinding a lot of plays. But like once I rewatched the game, but I saw a lot of plays where it really wasn't on the O-line, where they were outmanned. Iowa just out schemed them and had like, 7 to their 5 or 8 to their 6 or whatever, basically run blitzing. But there were times when Ohio State's offensive line was not getting the job done. We can't sugarcoat it. Okay. And again, though, Iowa's got a great defense. We can acknowledge both things, but Ohio State's offensive line's got to be better, because as good as Iowa is on defense, Michigan's just as good, I think. Maybe some people would disagree with that. They're at least like comparative, and Michigan doesn't have the most anemic offense in college football. In fact, Michigan has the number 22 offense in college football. Not elite, but good. Very good running game. No downfield passing game that we've seen so far for Michigan. Dink and dunk passing game to the tight ends and stuff. But still, they've got a really good running game. Number 22 offense in the country for Michigan. Dead last in the country for Iowa in total offense. So the offensive line needs to be better. Not if they're going to beat Indiana and Northwestern and Maryland, or even next week against Penn State. But if they're going to beat Michigan, the offensive line has to be better. And I am confident Ohio State's going to beat Michigan, but the offensive line has to be better. Marvin and Emeka, goodness gracious, we talked about this a little bit earlier. I mean, they're both Biletnikoff candidates. They'll probably end up like hurting each other, because they're going to like share votes, and somebody like from like some pass happy offense that would be like fifth string at Ohio State will win it. But those guys are just tremendous. It's unbelievable. They're such hard workers. They have the entire package. Okay, they've got the talent. Okay, and they've got like the hard work, and they've got the character. Like, these are like first class young men off the field, and then Harrison Jr.'s got the bloodlines, but he's also got, he looks nothing like his father, meaning like his size. Harrison Sr. is a little bit undersized. High school quarterback, was an option quarterback in high school and transitioned to wide receiver under, Donovan McNabb at Syracuse. And then obviously played with Peyton Manning all those years with the Colts, and Hall of Fame wide receiver. But about 6 foot, 190 pounds, something like that. I have to look it up. I mean, Marv's every bit of 6'4", 210. I say it all the time. He reminds me of AJ Green. AJ Green early years with the Bengals, or AJ Green with the Georgia Bulldogs. And Emeka Egbuka is just fantastic as well. These are just first-class young men off the field, absolutely extremely talented, and they work harder than anybody. It's awesome. It's staggering how you lose 2 first-round picks at wide receiver. Jackson Smith and Jigba's out, so basically you lose 3 first-round picks, and you don't skip a beat at wide receiver. Kudos to Ryan Day and Brian Hartline. Mark Pantoni for his recruiting, but Brian Hartline, his development, his recruiting, and Ryan Day. I mean, it starts with, the man up top. So Marvin and Emeka, we continue to learn they're absolute studs. And, both those guys should be Biletnikoff finalists. I don't care if there's only 3 finalists. Those two are 2 of the best wide receivers in the country, no doubt about it. All right, C.J. Stroud. All right, struggled at times, but I think we have to acknowledge that he was dropping dimes in the second half. I mean, there were like 3 throws where it was like, whoa, and we're used to like CJ making great throws, but there were some throws where it was like, wow, he just did that. And I think we have to acknowledge the fact that CJ Stroud, life is good when, you throw for 4 touchdowns, nearly 300 yards against a really, really, really good defense, and everybody's like, what's wrong with CJ? And I'll admit, I did write in early in my notes like, is he killing his Heisman campaign? When he had an interception and no touchdowns. And then the second half, though, I mean, you look at those final lines. If you're a Heisman voter against this Iowa defense, there's no way you're going to hold anything against C.J. Stroud. He made up for it. Now, he's got to be better than he was in the first half. Don't get me wrong. But I think, what he did in the first half, that's going to overshadow what he did in the second half. I think people are going to focus on kind of what happened in the first half more than what happened in the second half. But I give him credit. He was just dropping dimes. I love that 79-yard touchdown pass to Julian Fleming. Iowa still had their first team defense in there. Listen, if you want to say the game's over, then get your second team defense out there. We'll follow suit, put our backups in there. If you're going to run blitz with your first team defense, we're going to do a play action fake. We're going to hit Julian Fleming. It was still decent coverage by the DB. It just could not have been a better throw by CJ. And then Fleming, he gets the ball, he's a runaway freight train. So I loved that. Can't say enough nice things about Jim Knowles. the mad scientist up there just doing great things. Can't say enough nice things about Jim Knowles. Home run hire for the Buckeyes. I mean, just absolute grand slam home run hire. I mean, down 3 in the 9th, 0-2, game 7 of the World Series, and Jim Knowles hits a grand slam home run. That's what he's doing right now. I absolutely love it. I mean, they're going to move up. They're the number 5 total defense in the country. They'll move up now. I mean, Iowa couldn't do anything today. All right, so we talked to them good. I've told you we have to do good and bad because we got to be real. The running game's a disappointment. And I know Iowa was selling out to stop the run, and they're thinking if we can get pressure on CJ, then he won't have time to throw the ball. And that was working for most of the game. For the first half, it was working for the entirety of the first half. But, well, what have we been saying, though? Ohio State can run the ball when the other team knows they're going to run the ball. Well, today they couldn't. I mean, it was an anemic rushing attack. It's disappointing. There's just no getting around it. It's disappointing. Just no getting around it. Absolutely disappointing. So, I mean, just the running game has to be light years better than that because basically they've been tested twice this year, Notre Dame and Iowa. And at least in the Notre Dame game, it was like, well, at least they adjusted and then just were able to pound the ball down their throat in the second half. Now, at least in this game, they adjusted and they were like, they're just stopping the run. We're going to pick them apart in the passing game, which they did. So you got to adjust one way. So I get it. Like at some point, Ryan Day was probably like, okay, it sounds good to say we got to commit to the run right now, but they're, sending 8 in the box with our quarterback and our wide receivers. All right, we're gonna torch them, and they did finally in the passing game, but it took a while to get there. But the running game has to be better and markedly better, exponentially better. Not to beat Penn State next week, who looks soft up front. Not to beat Indiana and Maryland and Northwestern, but to beat Michigan. To win the national championship, you better be markedly better in the running game. Playing starters late, as I wrote down. We learned that Day was playing the starters late to get revenge. I already mentioned that a little bit. And we mentioned great adjustments. I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be back in 2 minutes, and then we're going to take some questions. So get your questions ready, and then we're going to take some questions here, and eventually we're going to hear from Patrick Murphy, and we're going to hear from Steve Hellwagon. So start firing away with any questions. I will be right back in maybe about 2-3 minutes. See you guys soon. There we go. All right. All right. Sorry about that. I had to grab my glasses. Let's get to some questions here. Welcome back. Okay. Let's get to some questions here. Okay. Eric, this is more of a yeah, I agree with this. This is from Eric on Facebook. Stroud, 20 of 30, 286 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. Not bad considering how shaky the first half looked. Those stats look good. I will say one more thing I meant to say, though. He should have had 3 interceptions. He was very, 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 very lucky he didn't have 3 interceptions. Goodness gracious. My gosh. Another this is a comment, not a question. This is from Buckeyes fan up north. CJ got better once JSN went out. Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably a coincidence. But yeah. Jesse says he thinks JSN will play again. Emmanuel says JSN should just get ready for the draft. Goodness gracious. Robert saying all props to JSM. We are fine with or without him. Again, though, Robert, if the starting receivers right now stay healthy, I agree. If they have Marvin Harrison Jr., Mecca Buka, and Julian Fleming, they'll be more than fine. What if one of those guys gets hurt, or two of those guys, heaven forbid? So, man, that's just too bad. That was my biggest fear. He was going to come back and re-injure, and that's exactly what happened. But that just tells me that it was inevitable. It was going to probably happen, even if they waited, another month. Ken Taco Hut. Yeah, I mentioned this earlier. I know a lot of people are just tuning in. He says, Dave, just say it. JSN is done. I said it earlier. That's my contention. I hope I'm wrong. But yeah, as I said earlier, I'll be surprised if that was not the last snap of football JSN will ever play for the Buckeyes, and that's sad. He literally had a record-breaking year for Ohio State last year, the most receiving yards in Ohio State history in a single season by a wide margin, 1,605 yards last year. 1,605 yards last year. Unbelievable. Brandon on Facebook, CJ made adjustments in the second half in his footwork, evading to extend some plays. Did you see that? Very good adjustment. I did see him with better pocket presence in the second half. I don't know if that was something the coaches told him as far as an adjustment or something he did on his own, but you're right. That was an adjustment he made. I noticed he was moving in the pocket better and buying himself some more time. Listen, this was not a bad. We got to look at the whole thing, right? Like if he was started great and then finished bad, we would be talking about that. Like he made some really good throws, some like absolute, just unbelievable CJ Stroud type throws. He also struggled at times. And again, even though he only had one interception, he should have had three. They flat out dropped one. And then another one was called back, which was, he was very lucky that was called back. Stephen Cherry, we still don't use Cade Stover enough, and it's always open. Yeah, I love when they use Cade Stover, and I'm glad they're using him more. I will say there was one play that was called back where he had like a nice play early, and it was called back due to a penalty, but it was like an illegal formation. Apparently, DeJuan Jones was like lined up like a little bit that far back in the backfield, so they called illegal procedure, or excuse me, illegal formation. So that took that pass from Cade away. But yeah, Cade's a beast. He looks like a beast out there, doesn't he? He looks like an absolute beast. Facebook, Donnie Powell, one of the better softball players ever. Do you really think Michigan's pass defense can hold up against Ohio State's offense? Not for 60 minutes, I don't. I think they really only have the one really good DB in DJ Turner. They lost all their other DBs from last year, at least I think 3 of the 5, including their nickelbacks. So now Stander still has made a nice transition from wide receiver to nickel. I was thinking that's desperation, but he actually has looked good. So Sanders still, but no, I don't think they can hold up. As long as Ohio State has a Mecca and Marvin Harrison Jr. and Julian Fleming, I think that's going to be a bad day for Michigan. So we'll see what happens there. Robert on YouTube, I think if Mayan would run the ball more, it would help our run game. Yeah, I mean, like I like Travion a lot. It does seem like Mayan is the better of the two backs, though. It does. Not by a wide margin. I like Travion a lot. It's a good problem to have. But if we had to rank, it wouldn't be like a huge margin, in my opinion, because I think Travion's running the ball well. But to me, it feels like Mayan is the better of the two backs. Entered play today, ranked 3rd in the country in yards per carry. That'll go down. Jeez. Buckeye 80. Do I think if CJ Stroud ran the ball more, it would help the run game? Yes. Do you not think that Iowa talked about that all week, that he's no threat to run the ball, so we know that we can key on the running backs? Or if he like puts the ball in the running back's belly, we either know he's either going to give the ball to the running back or he's going to pull it and throw it. He's absolutely no threat to run. There's not that triple threat of, okay, when he does that, when he fakes the run, it could be the running back running it, or he could pull it, he could run it, or he could throw it. No, it's just a 2-pronged attack. It's not 3-pronged. And yes, CJ being 0 threat at all to run affects Ohio State in games like this. And you can make all the excuses you want. He doesn't need to run it a lot. That's not my point. You guys all know how I feel about this if you've listened to me. I'm not saying he needs to run the ball 5 or 10 times a game. Once or twice a game, it'd be nice to have a called quarterback run where the defense is not going to be expecting it. Can you imagine if they did like a little naked bootleg with CJ Stroud? Do you think the DN is going to have any respect for him to run the ball? No way. Now, maybe they're saving it for Michigan. Maybe they're saying it in a Michigan. Dade said JSN was on a pitch count. He just said that in the presser. I know what I saw. We have Linz Breezy saying, I'm not watching the press conference because I'm doing the show. I appreciate that, Linz, loyal listener to all of our shows. And I'm sure he's saying that. I know what I saw, though. Jackson's limping off the field, and he had his head down, and he doesn't come back in. I mean, I've got to. I mean, I'll be shocked if that wasn't his last play that as a Buckeye. I hope I'm wrong. They rushed him back twice. Okay, a lot of people are staying positive. Brutus B. Buckeye must stay positive about JSN. We will see him again. I hope you guys are right. We'll see him again in the NFL. I don't know if we'll see him in scarlet and gray. I mean, he definitely limped off. We saw what we saw, right? I mean, he limped off. As Dennis is saying, he had his head down. It looked, and then it just was just like he kind of knew. He had that look at like, oh, crap, I knew. Yeah, Lynn's saying, oh, yeah, scary. Yep. I will say that John Gorby, that's a good point. John on YouTube saying CJ Stroud did try on a scramble today, but waited too long. Yeah, but like he was trying to. I did like that though. Yeah, he did wait too long, but that defender slipped, and he thought maybe he could get by him. So at least he did kind of try that one time. That's a good point. I like that he's not like completely like averse to trying it. You know, but man, that'd be huge for Ohio State because you don't want that opposing defense to have. Because if you're a defensive coordinator, you would do the same thing. You'd be like, this guy is zero threat to run at all. And if he does it once, okay, then maybe we'll adjust or twice. But let's make him do it first. And he never does it, or very rarely does it. Very rarely does it. We have somebody talking about Chase. Jamar Chase didn't play the entire year and was rookie of the year. Right, but Jamar Chase is, I mean, as good as Jackson Smith-Njigba is, I don't think he's like a freak like Jamar Chase, though. Jamar Chase is a freak. I'm saying this as somebody who does not miss an Ohio State game or a Bengals game. Like Jackson Smith-Njigba was fantastic, but Jamar Chase is next level. Like sat out the season, still was the number 5 pick of the draft, and still was the rookie of the year by a wide margin. And I think Jackson, even if healthy this year and putting up another huge year, would not have been the number 5 overall pick of the draft. Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah, Bosa. We have another one here. Yeah, Neil's making good points. I mean, you can sit out and still be. You know, Nick Bosa, he's saying, was rookie of the year after sitting out most of the year. That year, Ryan Day was interim head coach there for 3 games that 2018 season, and Nick Bosa was rookie of the year. That's true. Yeah, if your point is that this is going to hurt Jackson Smith-Njigba's pro career or won't hurt it, I agree with that. I don't think this is going to hurt his pro career because hamstring injuries linger, but they don't. It's not like they're going to linger for 3 years unless you don't give it proper rest in the offseason. But like during a season, that's the problem. That's what we were all worried about was this was going to linger during the season. And it has. And now I'm worried he's done. Now I'm worried he's done for the year. But I agree it's not going to hurt his pro prospects. All right. Riley on Facebook. Stroud doesn't need to run. Why run? He doesn't run the ball, and we still blow opponents out. Why take the risk? Well, they weren't blowing Iowa out early today, and I think in certain games, Michigan, college football playoff, if you just have that once or twice a game or you get a cheap first down, whether it's a called quarterback run, because there's no way they're going to be expecting that, right? You get a cheap first down that way. Then maybe they got to respect it. Maybe the DN there is a little bit then, unsure of himself, little pause. He's not crashing as hard because he has to respect it then. I think he needs to do it once or twice a game. Once or twice a game. All right, we have Patrick Murphy live from the Horseshoe. Patrick, welcome in, my friend. How you doing?
I'm good. It's a lot hotter than I expected it to be today, so I'm pretty warm. But other than that, it's good.
Yeah, having like a little summer and fall here. Patrick Murphy live from the Horseshoe. All right, so Buckeye started slow. What was kind of the vibe in the post-game interview room? Was it like, hey, they took care of business, they ended up winning this game by 44, or was it like mostly focusing on the slow start? Just what was kind of the vibe?
They were happy with the result, certainly, especially the defensive guys we talked to. I would say that they are well aware of the fact that there are things that they need to clean up here, especially offensively in the red zone. That was something that's been really good. And obviously Iowa's defense deserves some credit for a lot of the things that happened today. But I think you have to accept the fact that this wasn't as good as you expected coming into this game, even playing against good defense, because you're going to face good defenses once you get into, the college football playoff potentially, things like that. So there's definitely things to clean up. They need to score touchdowns in the red zone. Ryan Day said that very clearly. And, that was not a thing they did well today, even though they have all season. So things to work on for sure.
All right. What's being said about Jackson Smith and Jigba? I know what I saw. It sure looked like he re-injured the hamstring. I won't be surprised if he's done. What do you think?
Yeah, I am a bit perplexed because he clearly, right there, pulled up a little bit. And it didn't look serious because he kept jogging around and stretching it out. And we were watching him pretty closely those next few minutes. But then Ryan Day said in the postgame that he just reached his snap count limit, and so they took him out of the game. And then there's a follow-up question about it, and he said, he thought that Jackson was at about 20 or so snaps. And I don't know what the exact number he did play, but that was why they pulled him out of the game. I don't believe that. I can't. I mean, I think Ryan Day's been more forthcoming with us this year about injuries, but that to me is just. I think he's going to regret saying that because he's going to have to go back on it next week. Now, we were talking to Emeka Egbuka, and he said, he was frustrated, didn't get to play more, but this is just the start of him coming back. So, maybe it was something really minor, and they were just like, well, you're about your limit anyway. Let's just call it a day. I mean, we'll certainly hear more this week, but I saw it the way you did. It looked like he definitely tweaked it, enough that he was not comfortable walking for a minute. And then he looked better. I didn't pay attention much in the second half. I didn't see him on the sideline, but I was looking at other things at that point. So we'll see. But that's certainly a weird thing to say when the last play was certainly something that wasn't normal. It's not like he caught a pass, jogged off celebrating, and then they're like, okay, you're done. That would have been something where I could have bought Ryan Day's explanation.
How about the game from Zach Harrison? He's been much maligned by fans. He was all over the place. His stat sheet looks good. There are even plays that are not going to show up in the stat sheet.
Sure.
But he was phenomenal. Zach Harrison with the game of his life. My goodness, has he come of age?
Absolutely. And Ryan Day talked about it. He was asked. He told a funny story that I will quickly summarize. That when they were recruiting Zach, his first year as the head coach, Zach was obviously a huge recruit, really important for them to get, but they'd obviously shifted head coaches from Urban Meyer to Ryan Day. So he went with Larry Johnson to Zach Harrison's house. And after the meeting with him and his family, he gave him a Buckeye, which I think Ryan Day does with everybody when he visits. And Zach looked at it, took a second and looked at it and said, Coach Day, you know Buckeyes are poisonous, right? And Ryan said he walked out with Larry Johnson and said, Larry, we're not getting Zach. And he thought he made a big mistake there. Obviously they did. Ryan talked about his journey and just how, it's everybody's different. And Zach admitted when we talked to him after this game that, look, he came in and he watched Chase Young and he watched some of those other guys his freshman year and thought, oh, I'll do that next year. And he was frustrated when that didn't pan out that way. But now he's certainly much more comfortable, I think, in his skin, in his role, in what he does. Ryan Day pointed out that, Zach is bigger, longer than a lot of the defensive ends that have been really successful there. And so he kind of had to grow into his body. I don't know enough about how defensive ends grow into their body to confirm or deny that, but I do think Zach Harrison is playing his best football of his career right now.
Welcome in Steve Hellwagon. Steve, piggyback on that. Welcome in to the show. Zach Harrison, much maligned, as Patrick was just talking about, had game of his life. What do you think about Zach Harrison balling out today?
I thought he was outstanding, and he came out, shot out of a cannon early in the game. I made the comment to Pat that the right tackle was he couldn't block him. And Pat said that when he talked to our Iowa publishers that they were starting some younger guys on the offensive line this week because of injuries or whatever. And so, that was kind of borne out. Those guys had a real rough day trying to keep Zach Harrison out of the backfield, and he wreaked some havoc. This was the Zach Harrison we were promised 4 years ago. And, kind of like Pat was alluding to what Coach Day said, everybody's on their own path, their own journey, and he got closer to his destination today, no question about it.
All right, Patrick, let's get you out of here on this. Your thoughts on, I guess some of the negative things about Ohio State, the lack of being able to run the ball when Iowa knew they were going to run the ball. I know Iowa was doing a lot of run blitzing, but your thoughts on the offensive line and Ohio State's inability to run the ball when they needed to?
Yeah, it was strange just given what we've seen because they've been so successful, especially in those short yardage red zone situations. I said at halftime that I thought they should run the ball more down there. I thought they were throwing too much in the red zone. Then they tried it a couple times and they were getting nothing. And so I understand a little bit why they were throwing down there. Look, I think you got to give some credit to Iowa here, right? This is a really good defense. And if you thought that was a joke going in, yes, Ohio State scored 50 whatever points today, but it was difficult. And so give Iowa credit. They are a very good defense. And if their offense didn't make their defense play 40 minutes a game, they probably would look a lot better than the numbers do even now. So I think credit there. I think the Buckeyes probably have benefited from playing some offense or some defenses that haven't been able to handle the run. But now you've got tape of what teams are going to do, and you've got to figure it out this week because you're going to see some pretty good defenses down the stretch here, and they're going to look at what Iowa did and try and emulate some of those things to stop the run game and to combat this offensive line. CJ Stroud was under pressure about as much as I've seen him this year too. So that whole area will certainly need some work, but I think that's good for the Buckeyes. I think you needed something to, show these guys, look, it's not always going to be this cakewalk offensive performance. Their struggles are sometimes good for a team, especially when you still win by 40 plus points.
Any parting thoughts before you get out of here? Anything else you'd like to say to the Bucknutters out there?
No, I think Steve will close this out perfectly.
Okay. Thank you, Patrick. Appreciate it.
All right.
Put a lot of pressure on me.
You will.
No.
All right, Steve, let's get into it, man. So I don't know, man. Do you think JSN is done? You think we've seen the last of Jackson?
That didn't look good. I'll say that. And obviously this game was well in hand. I mean, even though it was whatever it was at halftime, I don't even remember 16-10 or what, 16-7. Didn't look good. They sent him on a deep, they sent him on a deep pass down the sideline toward the Ohio State bench. And as he came out of the route, it was obvious he had done something to his hamstring again. And so I don't know if this is going to be another month or if this is going to be just a couple days and get treatment and see how he feels. But damn, if this is just something that he just can't escape, and it's nobody's fault, nobody's doing something wrong or whatever. He wants to play, they want him to play, and it's just what it is. I mean, there's just nothing anybody can really do about it to change it, and it's unfortunate because he's worked so hard for this moment that you figure was going to be his crowning achievement as a college player, and it's just not worked out for him. And to declare, oh, that's it, and his college career's over, I don't think we're ready to say that just yet. I guess we're back to asking the same 6 questions every week. Is he practicing? Is he ready? Is he healthy? Can he go? And when will he be healthy? I don't know, but hopefully it's just a small thing and not a serious thing.
Yeah, it looks pretty serious, though. I'll tell you what is serious is the play of Tommy Eichenberg. My gosh, he looks like he's going to win the Buckeyes Award. He's playing that well. And he's now putting up stats like getting a pick 6 today, another tackle for loss, things you have to do, get those numbers. It's not just how good you look to the naked eye. So Tommy Eichenberg, Steve, I'd be lying if I said I ever saw this coming. He did turn it on in the Rose Bowl and had a great Rose Bowl, defensive MVP in the Rose Bowl with 17 or 18 tackles. But we're seeing great linebacker play out of Tommy Eichenberg. Your thoughts on that?
Oh, I agree 100%. I think Zach Harrison may have been the defensive player of the game today, but for the first 7 games, it's Tommy Eichenberg. He's been the best player overall on the defense for the first 7 games. And so, he just keeps coming with the lunch pail week after week after week and playing his best football. I think I've said all Big Ten, possibly all-American level. There's still 5 games left to earn that, and we'll see if he's able to finish it off. But he's played outstanding. I mean, just wonderful. Kind of harkens us back to some great Ohio State linebacker play of years gone by, Dave. So not to disparage anybody who's played there in the last 5 years, but it's been a couple years since they've had an impact guy at linebacker, and I think he's he's filling that bill pretty nicely right now, and really fitting in this scheme, offense or defensively. We talked about what Jim Knowles has done, and I know that Iowa was the worst team in the country, less than 300 yards per game and less than 15 points per game coming in to the game, and their offense netted 3 points today. Their defense again outscored their offense with the fumble recovery for the touchdown, and Ohio State held them to like 158 yards. I think they were one of 13 perhaps on third down, so they didn't sustain any drives, and it was just really just a kind of awe-inspiring performance by the Ohio State defense, knowing that, again, this is the 6th or 7th really bad offense that they've played. So we'll see when they get in. Penn State may be marginally better next week. We'll see, how they do next week. I'm going to Happy Valley, and hell, let's go see what happens.
It's not a whiteout. It's the whiteout's tonight. It's not a whiteout for once.
Not a whiteout. It's not a whiteout, and
thank God.
Well, yeah, they got their asses smoked. So yeah.
That's right. Hey, where do you come down on CJ Stroud? The final numbers look really, really good. But he only had 1 interception. He should have had 3 interceptions. He did have 4 touchdowns. And man, in the second half, he had like 3 or 4 balls. It was like, wow. Even for CJ, it was like, man, he could not have thrown that any better. So there was a lot of good. But people are going to focus on the bad. I get that. Steve Hellwagon, you're a voice of reason. How do you break down what you saw out of Mr. CJ Stroud today?
It's a 60-minute game, and we're judged over the course of 60 minutes, and I think that's how you have to look at it. On the whole, it was a winning performance for him, even with 2 turnovers. And I'm not down on him at all. I recall 2 plays that really stood out. There was one that if he had just kept running, he could have gotten like 20 yards. Instead, he threw it up for grabs down the field, and they intercepted it. And that's fine to do that against Iowa when you're up 1,000,000 to 1 or whatever. But, come and see me when you're playing Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, Michigan later on, and you make that kind of play, and all of a sudden you don't win the national championship. There's going to be a lot of unhappy people. So it's just this idea that, we got to get all of it right now, as opposed to taking what they give you. Maybe some impatience at times that creeps in there, and you can't make some of those plays, and he's got to be able to take what they give him maybe a little bit better. But I'm not going to quibble too much with him, because he does some amazing things. He always makes up for it on the back end, and makes 6 plays after that to make up for the one maybe that he didn't make. But I think Coach Day made a very good point that they were getting turnovers and they had short fields, and in the red zone, everything's compressed and contracted, and you've got to be precise. And Iowa did an outstanding job defensively in the red zone, holding Ohio State to field goals. And they've got, one of the best defenses in college football. People may not like for me to say that or believe that, but
they definitely do. Yes.
That was born out here today. They're legitimate. And I think what Coach was saying was, until later in the game, when they were pinned back deep in their own end and they had to drive the length of the field, and he could get into a rhythm that maybe he was not where he needed to be. So he was having to be too precise too early in the game, essentially, and that bit him. So they did have some incompletions in the red zone, and he even got pressured the one time and just basically threw it away. Didn't even give the receiver a chance to make a play because he wasn't getting hit. So he was getting rid of that football. So, but in the first half, you throw that away and you live to play another down. So, 54-10, there's a lot of teams out there that would love to have that today that didn't win, aren't going to win today in some big time games. And Buckeyes 7-0. 4-0 in the Big Ten, dead even with Michigan, and now it's the 5-week race to the finish, Dave. Here we go.
That's right. We'll get you out of here on this. Jim Knowles, wow. I mean, we thought he might have been a home run.
Underpaid at $2 million, Dave. Can I sign up to be his agent? I don't know.
Man,
underpaid at $2 million.
You said it all right there. You don't even need to elaborate.
Underpaid.
That's how great he is. It made him by far. It wasn't that long ago we hear Gene Smith saying, "I'm not going to get in the business of paying assistant coaches $1 million." Jim Knowles is making twice that and underpaid. Steve Hellwagon,
well, I'll just say this. I want to see next week what happens, because there was some adversity today. There'll definitely be some adversity next week, because Penn State's going to play with their hair on fire because they've already lost the game. Right. They can't lose another game. So Ohio State's in for one next week, and some of that will be on him. He's got to come up with a plan to make Clifford's life miserable, and if they could do that, they'll go in and win the game. I don't have any doubt about it.
If somebody's saying that Bryson Shaw would have looked good against this, I think he means this offense. All right, Steve Hellwagon, thank you very much. Appreciate
our great
all
fans. They're with them, win or tie. They're with them.
You've got a lot of fans here. Randy on Facebook saying can't argue with Steve. He makes good points every time.
Well, we tried. Well,
thank you, Steve. Appreciate you, my friend.
All right, love every one of you, and we'll see you later.
All right, thanks, Steve. He is Steve Hellwagon. Thank you to Steve. Thank you to Patrick. Thank you to Bill Kurlick, all the guests. Let's hit some more questions here before we wrap up the show. I got a couple in the queue right now that I want to get to. All right, couple. We're going to bracket these together. A couple from Facebook. Larry Brake. Didn't hear Mike Hall's name today. What did you guys see? We also have Donnie Powell on Facebook. What do you guys think about the way the defensive tackles played? Well, Mike Hall did play, and he was effective when he was in there. I don't think he had any stats, but there were a couple times that he just flew in the backfield, as he is wont to do. There was one time he basically blew up the play, and then Steel Chambers missed the tackle, which would have been either a tackle for a loss or a tackle for no gain, but the guy ended up getting like 6 yards. But Michael Hall still on a little bit of a pitch count, in my opinion. You know, he was definitely in there today. Didn't play a ton of snaps, but played more than the 7 that he did the last game. And then I thought overall, Donnie, the defensive tackles played well. Jerron Cage is a guy we're probably not talking about enough. He flashed. He was in there. They were really, really, really affecting that line of scrimmage. Now, Iowa's center is terrible. They had the best center in college football last year in Linderbaum, who the Ravens took in the first round of the draft with the number 25 overall pick. Baltimore actually traded up to get him. I thought that was a good pick. So Iowa lost a stud center, and the one they have right now is not very good. Not a good offensive line at all. But Jerron Cage is a 6th-year senior, is playing well. Teron Vincent, 5th-year senior. Mike Hall, to me, is still the best defensive tackle on the team, but he's, a little bit of a pitch count right now still, even though I'm sure he could have played as much as they needed him if it was a big game. But then Tyleik Williams was in there getting that, the fourth most snaps of those D tackles. So all 4 of those D tackles I like. And then right now, Ty Hamilton is that 5th defensive tackle. Didn't get in there till late. So there you go. I don't minimize my screen. I actually just minimize my screen as I'm trying to answer questions. That'd be tough to do. Tyler, Dave, do I feel like Stroud stares down his receivers too much? At times I do. I think sometimes, it's a combination, Tyler, of he makes, it's kind of one and the same, that he'll make his decision sometimes before the snap. I'm going here, unless he absolutely sees something that he doesn't like. But there was times he was thrown into triple coverage. It wasn't good. He should have had 3 interceptions today. You guys know I love C.J. Stroud, and I talk him up. He's the most accurate passer we've ever seen at Ohio State. Probably just the best passer ever at Ohio State, period. But, he does stare his receivers down too much at times. He is, predetermines what he's going to do before the snap at times. And then there's times where he'll go through his progressions and then make a throw to his third guy in his progression that's just like unbelievable, or he'll roll out to his left. As a right-handed quarterback throwing against his body, as Joel Klatt was saying. So it might look easy. It's really, really, really hard to do. We've seen him make incredible throws rolling out. So he's not perfect. But he doesn't always stare down his primary receiver, but he does at times, to your point. Yeah, you got to love him. Eddie on Facebook saying you got to love him. You got to love C.J. Stroud. Exactly. He's not perfect. Lynn's Breezy OH. Do I think CJ hurt his Heisman hope today? Initially, I did. I thought that for sure, Lynn's. I thought for sure that he hurt it. And then, it's a stats game. When the voters look at this, how many Heisman voters are watching this game start to finish? I don't know. We're going to go back and watch it. But it didn't look good early. It looked like he was hurting himself. And then in the second half, if anything, he helped himself. He got lucky, though, because he only had 1 interception. Again, I keep saying it. He should have had at least 2, probably 3. But the final stats look good against a really good defense. 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. So keep piling up those stats. If Hendon Hooker has a bad game against Georgia and Tennessee loses, and then Bryce Young already basically missed 2 games. He might not have the stats there. Alabama has a loss. I still think CJ is the favorite to win it. Did he hurt himself today? I don't know if I'll go that far, but he didn't help himself today. I'll say that. Man, but he almost hurt himself today and turned around in the second half. So, yeah, it's a lot of people are saying that they think Michael on YouTube saying he thinks he did hurt himself. I think probably a lot of people are going to say, yeah, he did hurt himself. But I don't know. We'll see. I mean, you look at those final stats against a really good Iowa defense. Maybe he didn't hurt himself too much. Rob on Facebook, what do you think about Klatt saying in the next 5 years he thinks Marvin Harrison Jr. will be the best receiver in the NFL? Yeah, he said that multiple times too. How about that? I mean, you could see it happening, right? And we've seen how many great wide receivers have we come through here. Marvin Harrison Jr. has everything. He has everything you want. The bloodlines, the talent, the work ethic, the size, everything. The Gucci cleats. Okay, you probably don't need the Gucci cleats, but doesn't hurt. I don't think he was wearing those today, but yeah, I mean, but that was, I mean, Rob, to answer your question, that spoke volumes to me because, Joel Klatt's not just speaking out of his rear end. He's hearing that from NFL scouts. Like, hey, this kid is like not just like the next first-round receiver out of Ohio State. This kid could be the best wide receiver in the NFL 5 years from now. Not as a rookie, maybe. 5 years from now, which would be what, his 4th year in the NFL? Yeah, it'd be his 4th year in the NFL. I mean, oh yeah, Louis Vuitton. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting my designer cleats wrong. It was Louis Vuitton, not Gucci. Okay, sorry. Louis Vuitton, not Gucci. Sorry about that. I'm kind of proud that I got that wrong. Is that weird? I'm kind of glad I got that wrong. Donnie, my friend, is saying Harrison isn't NFL fast. He plays fast though. He's quick. He's quick twitch. He's not a 40. This is why he wasn't ranked as the number 1 wide receiver in the country. Well, he should have been ranked number 2 because Emeka rightfully was ranked as the number 1 wide receiver in the country. But Marvin Harrison Jr. was like 14th in the country, which is still very good, 4-star, high 4-star. But the reason he wasn't ranked higher is because he didn't go to combines and like run a 4.3. But he plays fast. Again, he reminds me so much of A.J. Green. Marvin Harrison Jr. looks like A.J. Green part 2. And you could have made the argument early in A.J. Green's career that he was the best receiver in the NFL. He had Andy Dalton throwing him the ball, and he was putting up – come back and look at it. Some of the years A.J. Green put up his first 5 years in the NFL. He's all-pro all 5 years. That's what Marvin Harrison Jr. looks like to me. I know I love this. I don't think we can talk about this enough. JM on YouTube. This is a great way to end the show. Pretty fantastic when a team plays okay and they win 54-10 over Iowa. You're like, oh, well, Iowa sucks. Well, I hope if you thought Ohio State was going to win this game by 44, I hope you bet on the game because Ohio State was favored by like 29, 30. They win by 44. Everybody's like, they look mediocre. They win 54-10, and everybody's like, what's wrong with Ohio State? So I love it. That's a perfect way to end the show right there. Also, we have people saying that Marvin Harrison Jr. reminds them of Calvin Johnson, Megatron. I'm here for that. Good times. All right. Appreciate you guys a lot. Thank you so much for tuning in. You guys are loyal listeners to the Bucknuts Morning 5. You're loyal listeners to What We Learned Live. Cannot appreciate you guys enough. Thank you so much. Good win for the Buckeyes today. Don't get it twisted. This was a tough Iowa team that came in ready to play. The Buckeyes looked shaky early and then got it together, and 54-10 over one of the best defenses in the country and the worst offense in the country in Iowa. But after 7 games, I like where this Buckeye team is at. Looking forward to next week at Penn State. Really looking forward to November 26th. And you know what I'm saying there. Thanks to all of you. I know you have a lot of choices. Really appreciate you guys joining me. Thank you to the Dean of Ohio State Football Recruiting, Bill Kurlick. Thank you to Patrick Murphy and Steve Hellwagon for joining us live from the Horseshoe. Thanks to all of those guys. Bill Kurlick, Patrick, Steve, hardworking, great guys, talented at their craft. So proud to be able to work with them and call them friends. So thanks to those guys. Again, thank you to all of you. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. Enjoy the rest of the college football. We got UCLA not taking care of business right now. down 24-10 against Oregon. So the future Big Ten Bruins not looking good right now. A lot of good football. Penn State, Minnesota tonight. So thanks again to all of you. Appreciate it very much. Go Bucks.